Anyone else notice a lot of dead characters are coming back to life? What to do, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Vulgar Desperado, giving you and your crew some things to talk about in your living room. So, I'm playing Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII for those that don't know. And if y'all played the Final Fantasy VII remake, you'll know that the boy Zack, who's the star of this game, is back to life. And then I was just thinking to myself, like, in more recent years, it seems like they're bringing back a lot of characters that died. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Like, I'm literally wondering why. What's the reason behind it? So, from there's Zack, obviously, and then look, potentially Aerith might survive this time around in this new remake version of the game. Then there's like Frieza from Dragon Ball Super. They brought him back to life after that nigga got fucked up for the umpteenth time in Z. And then there's Shirley, Code Geass. She dies in one of the most heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, emotional deaths I've seen in the animes, and well, in all my years of watching anime. They brought her back in the trilogy recap movies, and it's a little weird that they brought her back, but they brought her back. And hell, going overseas to America, they brought back Gwen Stacy and turned her into Spider-Gwen. So my question is, why? Gwen Stacy, I can understand the marketability about it, and maybe even the pity behind it, right? She died, Spider-Man failed, and there's some good, easy, marketable stuff right there. She's a pretty popular character now, got her own series. Comics are kind of dying, but that's another story. And, she's into the Spider-Verse movies, so I can kind of understand the financial aspects of that. Final Fantasy VII seems kind of similar, if you ask me, especially if they decide to bring Aerith back. But bringing Zack back, it's a little questionable. Granted, you kind of know why Aerith has to die, and you can make that same argument regarding Zack's death and Cloud's character development and growth as a person, right, or whoever he becomes, right. You can kind of understand that his death had some necessity to it. Frieza, just kind of seems like we're just kind of going back to the barrel for that one, as much as some people have complaints about Super, I do enjoy it. However, was a little like, why are we bringing this nigga back, even if he is kind of cold right now in the manga. Shirley, Code Geass, top 5 anime, my number one, fire anime, just fire, pure fire. But part of the reason it's that fire is the gut-wrenching deaths. Euphemia, she dies, and so does Shirley. Now, they don't bring back Euphemia, which, it made more sense. It was way too integral to the story. And I think with Shirley's, while they obviously did it, like, the story can stay intact with her surviving, it adds deeper and greater levels to the depth of the story with her death. Right? It takes you to a place where you're just like, your fucking heart just feels that shit. And I find it kind of odd that they brought her back. Now, granted, I'll be real, that's a hard one for me. I really like the character of Shirley. If you want to talk about shipping, that was the one I was rooting for my boy to get, yada, 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 all that jazz. However, as a writer, and admittedly, let me go back. Admittedly, when I was a young writer, I always told myself, if I like a character, I wouldn't kill them. As I got older and I studied the craft of writing, I understand the point of a good death, right? I understand what levels that can take your story to. Think about Gundam, right? Most Gundams, yeah, they're cool. It's war, there's giant robots, but what really grips you on some of these shows are some of the deaths that happen. Take Gundam 00. When Lock-On dies, and granted, they bring him back a twin brother. Maybe that was their cop-out, but first season, when he goes, you're like, shit, bro, that was probably one of the most well-liked characters. I think that was, a character that everybody liked. Everyone has their favorites, but that's a character that nobody would dislike. He was really cool. Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans is another one. There are so many main character deaths of so many likable characters. Fuck, I think almost all the boys die in the end of that one. You're feeling kind of raw at the end. You're like, shit, man, this was rough, And I question when these stories go back and revitalize them, whether through new comics and movies, video games, whatever. It makes you wonder the purpose behind it. Do you think it's to, accommodate to today's modern sensibilities where individuals just can't handle these kind of deaths? And like, I get it. I was young too at once, and I wasn't crying at the screen, but you do feel some sort of way. You get kind of mad a little bit, but when you get older, you understand it, and hell, you even respect it. You're like, man, the fact that you were able to write that on the screen, killing such a likable character, you just hats off, round of applause for them. Like, it's good craftsmanship, it's good artistry to be able to take yourself out of it and do that. But now people are being brought back and stories are changing. And now I'd make the argument, like, at least for all the ones that I kind of listed, it's not the worst decisions. I mean, they could have just race gender swapped everything and then we'd really have a conversation. But I do kind of find it odd. I see it so much more commonly, at least with some of these remakes. And maybe there's some that I'm missing. And hell, maybe it's not even that big of a deal. But I did notice that certain characters that die are now being brought back to life. And I find it a little bit odd because you made the decision the first time around and you decided to go with it. And hell, most people will tell you, Eric's death in particular was one of the most gripping ones they ever experienced as a child, right? And again, she could come back to life, or stay alive, I should say. But you wonder, what is the purpose behind it? Obviously, there's marketability, and I would figure and guess that maybe it has to do something with today's sadder, sensitive society. But what do you think? Like, why would you bring back some of these characters, especially knowing the weight that their deaths had on the characters as the story continues, into the overall purpose of the story? Some of it, obviously, you can retell the stories, Code Geass being a perfect example by bringing them back and not changing up a thing. But some of the other ones, it just makes whole new universes, essentially. Final Fantasy, Spider-Man, like, these are whole new things. Dragon Ball Z, I mean, maybe that's the easier one. They got Dragon Balls, everybody come back to life. But you didn't really see bad guys come back to life like that. So I'm curious, you think it's marketing? Do you think it's sensibility? What would you say? And better yet, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? On the one hand, I can understand Shirley, I really liked her, but on the other hand, I respect the artistry and the brazen decisions to be like, hey man, we gotta let him die. So, what do you think? Leave something in the comments. If you have any other examples, leave it in the comments. I'm very curious if I'm the only one that's noticing this. But I find it interesting. I find it kind of fascinating. But let me know. You know what it is. Vulgar One, Vulgar Son, Vulgar Desperado, representing the Jabberjaws. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.